So today we're gonna continue working on the writing section. We're gonna finish doing the independent essay, right? That we started doing yesterday. So let me open the document. But before we start, I was telling you yesterday about this document where you will find a lot of sample responses for the independent questions. So I'm gonna send you guys now that link to the document. Let me search it. Okay. This is the one. The thing that I really like about this PDF is that these responses are from actual TOEFL past tests. So they are official from the ETS. They are related to the topics that you will find in the actual exam. And well, they are really well written. You know, all of them are examples of five level responses. So you better check them out. As I was telling you yesterday, it's a great practice. It's a great way of improving your writing, just reading. And it's something so simple that you guys can do no matter where you are, right? You can just read one essay a day, and that'll make a huge difference. So check them out. This is the document. Sample independent essays. And well, you have all of the responses here. There are a lot. I haven't counted them. I don't know how many exactly, but you probably have around 40 of these. I don't know, maybe more. So I'm sending you guys the link, and make sure that you take a look at that. Okay, guys. Is that okay? Do you have any questions so far? All right. Well, in that case, we'll continue today writing our independent essay. I remember we started yesterday. I don't remember exactly where we left, but I do remember that we wrote the introduction, right? So let's take a look. I have it here. Okay, here it is. So what we did yesterday was the introduction, and we started with the first body paragraph, right? We wrote the two first parts of the first body paragraph. So let's continue then. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Okay, we said in the body paragraph, in the first one, you guys need to have first thing your reason, and then you need to explain that reason a little bit more. So we said the first reason was going to be that by being honest, you become a more reliable and trustworthy person, which in turn helps you build a stronger relationships, right? That was a reason. And then we explained it a little bit farther. We went beyond the reason, and we said, in fact, it is widely known that lies are one of the most common reasons why romantic relationships and friendships fail. And then we said that we needed to provide some evidence of what we're saying. Now, as I was telling you yesterday, well, when we talk about opinions, usually the evidence that supports our opinions are, I'm sorry, I was with my camera off. Okay, usually the evidence that supports our opinions are experiences, right? Experiences that we have. So I was telling you that it'd be great if you guys can talk about a personal experience as your first example. So remember that your experience has to be related to what you're saying in your reason. So you need to talk about a time where you or somebody that you know maybe lied and that caused the relationship to end, or maybe when you were really honest and that made your relationship better, right? So, do you guys have any examples? Can you think of any ideas that we could use for the example here? What do I write? Any ideas? No ideas, really? Come on, guys, think about it. So remember what we were saying, right? First thing, we need to give some context. Where this thing happened. So maybe we could talk about a friendship, right? We could say something like, my personal experience plainly illustrates this reality. First thing, when I was a teenager, maybe I had a friend, I had a close friend, or maybe, yeah, when I was a teenager, I had a close friend who I had known since elementary school. Okay, that is the context. Now we have to talk about the events. The events have to be related to what we're saying here, right? Lies are one of the most common reasons why romantic relationships and friendships end, maybe, or fade, right? Or don't last. So I have to talk about a lie. Probably I can make up that I lied to this friend, right? But I have to think about what I could have lied to this friend about. So maybe we could say I had a close friend who I had known since elementary school. Once we graduated high school, she started dating. She started dating. Um, starting dating. Maybe my one of. Okay, she started dating my brother's friend at the time. One of my brother's friends. Okay. Maybe we could also mention what her name was. I had a close friend, Sarah, who I had known since elementary high school. Once we graduated, high school, she started dating one of my brother's friends at the time. Maybe we could say once, or I don't want to repeat once. Maybe we could say, as my brother and I were also really close, he once confessed to me that, okay, let's name these two people so that we don't get confused. She started dating one of my brother's friends, Joseph, Joseph. Okay, let's say that the boyfriend is gonna be Joseph. Now, as my brother and I were also really close, he once confessed to me that Joseph had been cheating on my best friend for a while. Okay, let's just say something like that. Now let's say, although I felt really bad for Sarah, although I felt maybe awful and wanted to tell Sarah, I thought it was it was better not to, as I did not want to hurt her feelings and be the one to break the news to her. Once, or I don't know, maybe she soon, however, she soon started to be suspicious and even asked me if I knew anything, if I knew anything. I lied to her. Maybe we could say, unfortunately, I lied to her and said no. Okay? So I know that I'm giving a lot of details, but it has to be something detailed. Probably not as long as what I'm writing. Maybe we can make some changes later. We can cut up some parts. We can eliminate some things that are not too relevant. But I'm just writing whatever comes to mind so that I have everything there, and then we'll make changes, okay? But try to always do what I'm doing. Just write and write and write until you finish, and then you can go back and see if there's something that you can do better. So I lied to her and said no. After what? After a while, or after a couple of months had passed, and the relationship had gotten serious, she found out the truth, or she found out that her boyfriend had cheated, and that I knew about it, and that I had lied. Okay. So when I was a teenager, I had a close friend, Sarah, who I had known since elementary high school. Once we graduated high school, she started dating one of my brother's friends at the time. So I think that's a little bit unnecessary, right? When I was a teenager, I had a close friend, Sarah. Maybe we could just go ahead and say who started dating one of my brother's friends at the time, Joseph. Okay, so that way we're summarizing things a little bit more. Now, as my brother and I were also really close, he once confessed to me that Joseph had been cheating on my best friend for a while. Although I felt awful and wanted to tell Sarah, I thought it was better not to, as I did not want to hurt her feelings and be the one to break the news to her. Break the news. However, she soon started to be suspicious and even asked me if I knew anything. Unfortunately, I lied to her and said no. After a couple of months had passed and the relationship had gotten serious, she found out that her boyfriend had cheated on her and that I lied to cover it. Okay, I think it's good, right? So those are the events. And finally, we have to reflect a little bit. Well, we have to come to the resolution of the story. Obviously, it has to be related to this relationships ending. So I'm gonna say, like, not surprisingly, she felt betrayed and ended our friendship right away. Okay? So basically, that's it. What I'm saying is, I'm illustrating what I just said in the reason, right? Lies are one of the reasons why relationships end, why relationships fail. And I am giving an example of that. And that's the example. As you guys can see, what you have to be doing in the example is making sure that it's connected to your reason, including a lot of details. So I'm including details about who I lied to, what I lied to her about, what I said exactly, how she found out, what happened after that. So I'm being very specific. I'm telling a story, right? And finally, after the evidence, after the example, what you guys have to do is have a closing idea that kind of closes this paragraph, right? As a short conclusion for the paragraph. Now, one really good way of doing this is by using a third conditional. This is especially good for grammar points, okay? So what I could do is, for example, speculate about what could have happened if I had done things different, right? What could have happened if things had been different? So I could say something like, had I not, or had I been honest from the start, perhaps we would still be good friends, right? So you just have to reflect on the example. You have to reflect on how this personal experience like shaped you in a way. You could maybe even add something else and say, so this is why it's important to be honest with your friends in order to preserve the friendship. Maybe. The important thing is that you have that closing idea that kind of connects the example back to the reason. Okay, guys? And that's it. This is the first body part. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions about it?
Teacher, sorry, I was a little bit late, and this is the second example of the writing section.
This is the second task of the writing section. This is the first example of the essay, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, any other question?
This is the integrated.
No, this is the independent writing. It's the same that we were doing yesterday. We're
The same. We're continuing. Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Yeah, so that's the first body paragraph. You have those four elements: your reason, your explanation, the example, and finally the closing idea. And then we need to see the second body paragraph, which is going to be very similar, but we'll make some changes to the example. We won't use a personal experience anymore. You will see. It's the same structure. We still have reason, explanation, evidence, and closing idea, but the evidence will be different. So let's take a look. Make it smaller. Okay. So our second reason I remember was about not feeling guilty, right? Feeling good with yourself, not feeling guilty, not feeling bad, like being in a good position with yourself, right? It was about that. So let's write it down. So we're going to start by talking about the reason. Furthermore, maybe we could say, furthermore, I don't know. Another tip that I wanted to give you guys, try not to overuse the structures, the conditional sentences like if and when, okay? Because they are too used. So try not to say, when you are honest, you become a more reliable and trustworthy person. Or if you're honest, you become a more reliable and trustworthy person. Try to use others alternatives instead. So by being honest, you become a more reliable person. Maybe in this case, I could say, telling the truth makes you feel good with yourself. Can you guys think of a synonym for the word good? In peace, maybe, right? So try to remember that I told you to always look for certain adjectives, right? Synonyms to the most common adjectives. So telling the truth makes you feel in peace with yourself, makes you feel in peace, at ease, maybe. So telling the truth makes you feel in peace. Maybe we could say, as you do not have to deal with feelings of guilt or stress. Feelings of guilt or stress about other people or about the truth coming out. Okay, so that was our reason, right? Telling the truth makes you feel in peace, as you do not have to deal with feelings of guilt or stress about the truth coming out. Is it okay? All right. Now we explain that a little bit more. So we could maybe say, I don't know. As a matter of fact, um, like lying can have a serious impact on your mental state. I don't know. Okay, but it's just an idea. So that is the first and second element. Those are the first and second elements, right? We have the reason first. Telling the truth makes you feel in peace, as you don't have to deal with feelings of guilt or stress about the truth coming out. And we have the explanation. As a matter of fact, lying can have a serious impact on your mental state. And finally, we need the example, right? So what we're going to do here, what we're going to do for the example is we won't be talking about another personal experience because that would be too repetitive. It would take you too much time because I know that it takes time to kind of think about the example, right? Think about a personal experience. It is long. So what we're going to do now in the second body paragraph is make up facts to prove what we're saying. Now, this has totally have to be something that you're making up. It's not have to be true. And I am not telling you to study hundreds of different studies and research or experiments, but you have to make them up. And what they have to do is illustrate what you're saying. So you have to illustrate that telling the truth makes you feel better and the lie makes you feel worse, right? You just have to prove that with an example that you're gonna make. For example, we could say something like this. For instance, I don't know, a recent study done by students from the University of Chicago examined the effects, or I don't know, the alterations of different brain functions that people experience when lying or when telling lies. Okay, so a recent study done by students from the University of Chicago examined the alterations of different brain functions that people experience when telling lies. This is the context, right? The context of the experiment, what the experiment was about, who made the experiment or the research, the study, whatever it is. Then we have to describe the study, right? So we're gonna say researchers studied a group of, let's say, 300 people. And measured their stress levels. Okay, I studied a group of 300 people who were asked to lie to a close family member during the experiment. To lie to a close family member for the experiment while simultaneously measuring their stress levels. Okay, so this is the description of the experiment. Researchers study a group of 300 people who were asked to lie to a close family member for the experiment while simultaneously measuring their stress levels. So I'm describing what the experiment was about. And finally, this is the most important part perhaps, and you could actually go directly to this part if you want, if you can think of any ideas. This is the most important part. The results have to be proving and showing what I'm saying in the reason, right? My reason is that lying makes you feel better, makes you feel at peace. I'm sorry, telling the truth makes you feel better, and lying has a serious effect on your mental state, right? So we're gonna say the results were shocking. Let's exaggerate, right, a little bit. It was found that our stress levels are increased in 20%, in 20 to 25% when telling lies. Okay. Maybe we can continue. They also found other, they also found that many other brain functions related or involved in Okay, many other brain functions are affected, are altered when lying. Okay, so this is the example. A recent study done by students from the University of Chicago examined the alterations of different brain functions that people experience when telling lies. Researchers studied a group of 300 people who were asked to lie to a close family member for the experiment while simultaneously measuring their stress levels. The results were shocking. It was found that our stress levels are increasing 20 to 25% when telling lies. They also found that many other brain functions are altered when lying. So I know that it looks like something very complicated to do, but believe me, it's not. I know that it just takes some practice. Maybe you do have to read a little bit about experiments to just know the vocabulary to use, things like researchers, um, results, experiment, examining. But to be honest, it's something that anybody could do. If you try, you will notice that it comes more easily than it looks. Okay? But the important thing is that it is proving what I'm saying, right? It is proving that we feel more stressed when we lie than when we tell the truth. So that's what we wanted to prove, and it's proven. And finally, we need the closing idea, right? So it has to be something similar to what we did for the previous paragraph. And we could say something like, I don't know, telling the truth, then telling the truth, then, okay, we're gonna say not only does telling the truth help you, okay, not only does telling the truth helps your interactions, your interpersonal interactions, but it then I don't know, but it then contributes greatly to your mental well-being per se. Okay, so this would be my closing idea, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm relating it to the previous paragraph as well. I'm saying, so not only does telling the truth helps you, not only does telling the truth help you build or help your interpersonal interactions, but it also contributes, but it then also contributes greatly to your mental well-being. So what I'm doing is summarizing everything, right? Coming to a conclusion of how telling the truth helps you feel better with yourself, how it helps your mental well-being, right? Is it okay so far? Do you guys have any questions up until this point?
Mm, for this task, the second paragraph always have to be like a science topic or something like that.
Okay, good question. Well, not necessarily. It's just a tip that I'm giving you. What I wanted to do here is to show you the different options that you have for giving evidence. These are the two best ones that you can use. You can either give a personal experience as an example or talk about a fact. Now, it's completely up to you, whichever you feel more comfortable with, you can go for that one. Ideally, it would be great if you could combine them the way that I'm doing, right? So use one personal experience and another fact for the evidence. But technically speaking, it's up to you guys. So if you feel that you're really struggling, you're just stressed by thinking of something like this, Then go with another personal experience, no problem. You can maybe make it shorter. Because another thing that I wanted to say, the second body paragraph is always supposed to be shorter than the first. That's a rule, okay? So use all the grammar you want, everything you want to say, do it in the first body paragraph. But for the second, technically, you could even skip this part and also skip this other element, okay? Why? Because let's be realistic. You don't have a lot of time to finish this essay. So if you guys are struggling with time, then make it shorter. You don't have to give too many details either. So you have to adapt this to your needs and to how comfortable you feel using different things. So you could use two personal examples. You could use a personal example here and a general one here. So in the second one, just talk about people in general. So maybe you can talk about how teenagers get stressed. So you're not really going to give a lot of details of any like scientific topic, but you could talk about something in general. So the important thing is that you have these elements, right? That you have the reason and the evidence mainly. And as I was telling you before, the second body paragraph is just like a complement to the first. Okay, so no problem if it's shorter than this. Any other question? Right, perfect. Then that's it. Those are the two body paragraphs. That's the introduction. Finally, last thing we need is the conclusion, right? So in the conclusion, what you're going to do is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Let's start by first talking about the things that you can do in the conclusion. First thing, you should not be adding anything new, okay? That's a big mistake. Do not add any new idea, any new reason, any new example, anything that you haven't mentioned before in the essay. Conclusion is only supposed to be a summary of what you said so far. So please don't add anything new. Second thing, remember, and I already said this yesterday, the introduction and the conclusion are not that important. So I wouldn't be wasting a lot of time there if I were you. Don't worry about making it perfect. Don't worry about it being too long. It does not have to be that long either. Actually, it's just going to be one sentence. Now that you see, okay? And it does not have to be creative. So don't break your head trying to think of a quote or think of something like that. Okay. Now what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do two things. The first is summarize the two reasons. So we will be summarizing what we said in the first and the second body paragraphs. And then we will restate our opinion. Basically answer the question one more time, directly, the same way that we did in this part in the introduction. Okay? How do we do that? We're gonna say something like this. In short, or in conclusion, having seen that, which means habiendo visto que, and then we gotta summarize both reasons. Habiendo visto que ser honesto ayuda a construir mejores relaciones y además te ayuda en tu estado mental. I believe it's safe to say, considero que se puede afirmar que, and then we answer the question once again, right? Siempre es mejor ser honesto. It's always better to be honest. Okay, guys? So that's it. That's what we're going to do technically in the conclusion. Summarize the two reasons and then restate our opinion. So for example, we could say, in short, having seen that, like telling the truth or honesty, honesty will strengthen your relationships and make them more long lasting. Then we can say plus or and, right? It's up to you. Plus, it also, I don't know, I don't want to repeat, contributes to your mental well-being. So I want to paraphrase it a little bit. Plus, it also benefits your mental state. I don't know. I believe it is safe to say that. And finally here, we have to repeat our opinion or our answer one more time, one final time. So basically the answer to the question was, no matter the circumstance, it's always better to be honest. We gotta say the same here. But let's try to paraphrase it a little bit. So let's say, I believe it's safe to say that I don't know. It is always, let's not repeat. I believe that's safe to say that honesty, let's change it. That being honest is always, will always be the best choice. Okay, so maybe something like this. As you can see, it's pretty short. It can be 1 or 2 sentences. Does not have to be longer than that. But the important thing is that I am doing what we said, right? I am summarizing everything that I said so far. I'm summarizing the 2 reasons, having seen that telling the truth will strengthen your relationships, make them more long-lasting. Plus, it also benefits your mental state. I believe it's safe to say that being honest will always be the best choice. So we have the 2 reasons first, and finally we have our opinion, our answer, right? And that's it. I know that the conclusion looks really tiny in comparison, like compared to the other paragraphs, but that's the way it should be. As I told you before, introduction and conclusion are not that important. Don't waste your time there. Focus on the back. You guys? So now feel free to ask me any questions that you guys have. I'm sure that you must have some questions because, I was writing most of the essay. So what do you guys think? Take a look at the essay. Maybe you have some suggestions. Maybe you think there are some things that we could write better, that we could do better. Let me know. What do you guys think? What comments, questions, observations do you have?
I have a question. For this part, how many characters or words does need to be?
Okay, great question. So according to the ETS, they say that an ideal response should have about 300 words. Now that's just a reference. You do not have like a word limit, so you can write as many words as you want, and you don't have a word requirement, which means that they will grade your response no matter how many words you write. Now, obviously, the number of words you write is somehow a reflection of how well elaborated your essay is. Because if you have like one paragraph, or if you have like 100 words, then that means that you haven't explained the ideas very well. You do not have an essay, probably. So technically, my suggestion is do something like what we did. The introduction and the conclusion, don't worry about that. You should have 2 to 3 sentences for the intro and conclusion. Try to have all the elements we talked about, right? So some context, the opinion, the transition, and those are 3 sentences. That's perfect for the introduction. In the conclusion, 1 or 2 sentences is fine as long as you summarize it. Now for the body paragraphs, it should also be looking something like this. So in the body paragraphs, you need to have those, in the first one at least, you need to have what we talked about. So have those 2 sentences for your reason and explanation. Your example cannot be shorter than 3 sentences. Okay, so that's gonna be probably 60% of your paragraph. And the closing idea is optional, but if you have it, then it's even better. It's optional though. And then the second body paragraph, you don't have to worry about that much. You can have 5 sentences there. As long as you have like 4 or 5 or 6 lines, then it's okay. So that's my suggestion. Try not to guide yourself from like counting the number of words, but instead trying to have all the elements that we talked about here. And if you guys have those elements, then you will have an ideal number of words. So if we count these, this is probably around 350, I'd say. I don't know. We can count them. But that would be my response to your question. Any other question?
Not really.
Okay,
If
so
possible, can you share us that from that part of the presentation, where is the structure from the introduction, the body parts? I think it's before this one. You create another slide.
another presentation?
Another in another slide, there were the parts of this, the introduction,
Oh,
for the
yeah.
body.
Yes, I did copy them somewhere else. But everything is in the same presentation. It's the same link. So you can access all of these slides from that link. Okay, let's count these words.
The link
Okay,
is in the WhatsApp group.
I'm sorry, Alejandra?
That link is in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I think it's there. I did send.
All right, thank you.
So look at this, we have 445 words, which is more than you should. As I was telling you before, in the second body paragraph, you don't need an explanation. You don't need a closing idea. Closing idea in the first is also optional, and your example could be a little bit short. So if let's say we skip this part, how many words do we have now? 396, right? It's still a really good number. You're aiming for something like that. 350 would be perfect. Any other question? Guys? So by the way, I'm gonna be assigning you guys. I haven't graded your essays yet. Today is the deadline, right? Yeah. So today, in a couple of hours, I'm probably gonna be receiving all of the integrated essays from all groups, and I'll be grading them this week, I promise, before the month is over. So I gotta grade them before the month's over. So I'll be grading them this week. I'll be giving them back, and I'm gonna send you another essay for this one too. Okay, so that you get some feedback. I'll be sending the instructions over the WhatsApp chat as well. But before you go, please, today we actually have to fill out 2 surveys. I am sending you guys the first. And when you guys are done, I'll send the other one too. So please don't go. If you could complete the survey, that'd be great. You guys, thank you. Now I'm sending the other one too. Yes. And that'll be it for today's class. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.
Thank you, Andrea. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.